are live. Welcome YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and my favorite, LinkedIn. Welcome to another episode of the Rise and Grind Show. I am your host, Duncan Harrison, the HR floor influencer, with my man live from Qatar. Tell him who you are.
One and only Jay Tyler. Peace and blessings to the universe. So, Duncan, without further ado, let's do what we came here to do. You dig? I messed that up a little bit. You dig?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Well, welcome to another episode of the Rising Grind Show. This job is driving me crazy. How to manage your mental health on and off in the workplace. And so I have a phenomenal panel today of experts in this field. I am just super excited and really just humbled that these people accepted my request to come on to the show. And I just couldn't be more elated to assemble, this is kind of like if you are a comic book fan, when you form like Voltron. Yeah, the Avenger, all
Right.
those things.
I want to be the Hulk.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
So if we can start, Mr. Carter Patterson, if you could just introduce yourself, tell people who you are, where you work, your expertise, please go right ahead.
Oh, okay. So my name is Carter Patterson. I'm a dad. I have 4 beautiful children. What can I say about myself? I've worked in social services and for the past 26 years. And if you ask my children, what does their dad do? I help people. And so that's who I am.
Very nice. Well, Thank you for that. Kimmy Carlos, if you could please introduce yourself.
Well, first, let me just say thank you to Duncan and Jay for bringing me to the table here at Rise and Grind Show. I am so delighted to be here. And every time we get an opportunity to talk about mental health, I'm so grateful because it's such a vital topic for all of us. I'm Kimmy Carlos. I'm the founder of a small grassroots nonprofit in Trenton, the Urban Mental Health Alliance. I'm also the CEO and founder of Kimmy Carlos Motivational Consulting, where I coach and motivate and train around wellness, resilience, and personal empowerment. And I am a mental health and equity and justice advocate. So I do a lot of work around mental health advocacy and the intersection of social justice in Black, Brown, and marginalized communities.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Janaba Figueroa, please tell the people who you are.
Everybody knows who I am. I don't have to. No, my name is, I know that's so vain and unlike God. So I apologize for that. But my name is Janaba Figueroa. I am a Trenton resident all my life, born and raised. I'm a mother. I have 1 son. He's a sophomore in college. What else is good about me? I meditate every day. That's really important. And I'm the director of marketing and communications for Rutgers University's Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. I've started a number of initiatives, and I do have an announcement later about a new business that I have launched. I got the paperwork today.
Awesome.
Congrats.
So I have an EIN. I got all my stuff. I got my state tax. I'm good. So I'm super happy about that. And I'm just super happy to be here. It's been so long since I've had an opportunity to speak on behalf of like somebody else's organization and not trying to do something on my own. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Ms. Farr Harris, please tell them who you are.
Hi, everyone. So since everyone kind of was sharing a little bit about family life, so I have 3 little ones and been married to my boo thing for about 15 years. I am a owner of a private practice in the south suburbs of Chicago. I'm not going to rep Chicago because Chicagoans will call you out if you are from the suburbs, not really from the city. So I'm in the south suburbs. And I also am the CEO and owner of the company Working Well Daily, which is a company that works with individuals and organizations to help decrease stress, recognize the intersectionality between wellness, mental health, and DEI. And I just want to disrupt toxic work environments and create a culture of wellness.
Oh, awesome.
Indeed.
So like I said, we have an awesome panel today. Also, we got a therapist in the house in our comments, Miss O'Grady. We see you. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for all of our fans and supporters out there for tuning in. So go ahead. Let's get in the show. Jay Tyler, you go ahead, take it over, sir.
Yeah, I mean, Wonderful introductions. Like I said, really happy to have the panelists on board. So let's get right into it. What is mental health? Let's define that first.
Can I go?
Yes, go jump right in.
Yeah, so I believe that mental health is the way in which we handle and interact with just the changes of life and how it impacts our overall psychological and emotional well-being. But in simple terms, I'll just say mental health is just living with life.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to echo that. I define mental health as our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and our ability to live, love, laugh, and learn in healthy, productive ways.
And if I can add to that, Kimmy, that mental health for me is this alignment between mind, body, and spirit, understanding the connection between them all, and then demonstrating that insight by expressing it, right? And just knowing that it's there.
That's good.
Yeah.
You guys are so smart because my definition was like so basic. I was like listening, like, oh, that's good. I should. No, but when I think about mental health, because I knew Kimmy was going to be here, and that she's the mental health expert, and I know the background of some of the people on the panel. However, am I on? Can you hear me? I feel like
yes.
You guys got so quiet. I was like, am I still on? Did I get disconnected?
Give you a lot of reverence, you know what I mean? A lot of
When I was thinking about mental health, I was thinking like, how I feel, it's just how I feel, and how I feel directly connected to how I think, because how I feel kind of dictates what I do with the rest of my day. And so, I don't know, I was just thinking about it in a real basic form, like, the change in emotions that we have when we interact with different people or we work on different things, but like, it's like the totality of who you are, your mental health. But sorry, that was a work email. My bad. That's what we're talking about right now, right?
Right. You got to shut that down. That job's going to drive you crazy.
Right. There's no balance. There's no balance there. We need boundaries. Yeah.
Right.
It's only 6:38 though. It's COVID. Good. Sorry.
No worries. Well, I think that's an important part to define it first, and I'm glad that everyone had their own version of what mental health is. So I want to go into another thing that for me, I'm not really an expert on this, but that's why I'm deferring to you all. But I do have this question about mental health. Sometimes there seems like there's a stigma on it. Like when you say mental health or you're talking about it and people don't really want to talk about it or don't want to open up about like what's going on with them inside in the workplace and outside of the workplace. So why do you think there's a stigma on mental health and even the awareness of it from inside? What do you think?
Well, if I can take a start at it, that the stigma comes from, I think, we as Black people, if we're talking to and about Black people, that there's a dignity, right, that we have, right, amongst ourselves, right, and to say that there is a weakness, that there is something wrong with my brain, that there's a chemical imbalance in my brain is showing vulnerability, right? I'm a very proud person, so let's not talk about Uncle Johnny, who we keep in the back room, who was born with a developmental disability, right? Because that's a stigma. I don't want that stain or that stigma on my family, right? And so I think it kind of comes from a deep sense of like, I want to be the best that I can be, but if I acknowledge this part of me, I might not look the best that I can in front of the eyes of the world, So I mean, there's just so many different layers to it, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Carter, I want to just get back at what you said for a second. Yeah. I know that a lot of times growing up, just being a Black male, for example, I know sometimes that, we have to look a certain way or feel a certain way to get someone's respect without opening our mouths first, right? Not necessarily the most friendly of looks or exchanges, right? Or even words. So if we're in the exterior all the time, even if we feel different in our interior, I'm assuming that also can affect our mental health as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know a lot of us sometimes we gotta be hard, we gotta be tough, just as being a man, they say to you, in general. So I'm assuming that can affect it too. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I know as a child, it said these things. You gotta do this, do that, so people can't see you as weak.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not, that actually translates to Black women as well. And I think that there's a lot of historical and cultural reasons why we don't want to show that vulnerability, right? We have so many other stigmas attached to us around colorism and featureism and whether or not we're intelligent enough. And if you're a Black man, are you scary? And if you're a Black woman, are you strong enough or are you angry? Or, so there's so many other stigmas and stereotypes that we have to fight. To have to tack on mental health on top of it, is something that we would rather not have to discuss. A lot of it also has to do with simply understanding what mental health is, because most of the time, we don't even think about mental health unless we're actually thinking about a mental health challenge, right? So when I teach workshops and I ask the question that you asked, Jade, what is mental health? The first thing people say is it means you're crazy, or it means you're depressed, or it means you're weak, right? And I didn't ask what mental illness was. I asked what mental health is. And so when we start talking about mental health, so people understand, just like you have heart health or lung health or skin health or hair health, your brain is an organ like any other brain. And when we start to teach that, then we kind of remove that stigma around what it is. So I think a lot of it has to do with us normalizing the conversation around mental health, the same way we normalize the conversation around HIV or normalize the conversation around breast cancer or prostate cancer. There was a time when we didn't discuss any of that either, right? So I think the stigma is because we haven't normalized it. And we have so many other cultural and historical stigmas already attached to us. And mental health is at the bottom of the list. We really don't want to address that if it's going to make us look vulnerable or crazy or weak.
I love that because I agree with you, Kimmy, in presenting the conversation on mental health from not an illness viewpoint, but from a wellness standpoint. And I think to your point, every time I do a training, the first thing they're just like, oh, we'll do a little blurb and talk about the percentage of people who have depression. And I was like, wait, we don't necessarily need to talk about that. I mean, it's important, but mental health is just, as I said earlier when we were defining, it's just life. So are we going to talk about what happens when you get a new job and there's some stress around that? Are we going to talk about moving to a new city or having a baby and how that changes the dynamics? And so normalizing it and recognizing that we are all going through things that affect our mental health, positive, things, but then, there's some things that are not so positive. And historically, I agree with you, Kimmy, on just the stigma attached to us, in our color and in our body and personhood. But then there's also the historically the systemic racism that we've dealt with the majority of the thought leaders in psychology being white cis male. And then, we can't necessarily trust. We have the Tuskegee experiment. We have all these areas in the medical and health field that have never served us well. So it's like, okay, now I got to trust you people with my heart and mind. I think I'm good.
So absolutely. It's self-preservation.
It's funny that you said that about racism, because typically when I ask someone, especially a man of color, if he's ever thought about seeing a counselor, the first thing that he says is that, why would I let somebody who doesn't understand who I am as a Black man tell me how I should change my life? And so it's so funny because what I was thinking about while everybody was talking was this concept of representation. And so working for a graduate school of psychology, you see that there is no representation of the Black man embedded, like you were saying, within this culture that has been created to comfort other people of other races and white people, essentially. And so, like, for instance, I probably can count on my hand how many Black men are in the program, and there's probably maybe one or two, but if that, and then you have to start thinking about representation in education and psychology, and the counselors, and so you can have a Black gym teacher, but no, you can't have a Black psychologist. I just stumbled upon a Black psychologist that is my own psychologist, but if you saw him, you would think he was white, and he's very knowledgeable, but he's he's a black man, and but that's hard to find. And so when parents are looking for people to go to personally, and also for their children or whatever, unless you live in areas where it's very saturated with people who are educated and who are black, you probably won't find a black psychologist. So more about representation for me than about stigma, but all of it's intertwined, I think.
So let me ask this, because I want to get into the comments real quick, and I want to ask this, because Carter will probably tell you, me, I'm the first person to say, that boy, that girl, they crazy as hell, right? And I say that because people will say, I'm not crazy, but I'd say it, not to obviously to the person, but is it my job as an employer, right, as a supervisor, to address somebody or find the services for somebody that has mental health illnesses, right? Is that my responsibility? If you have some challenges or crazy, am I obligated to be around that because you have these problems?
No, I think what happens, Duncan, that you are obligated to see that individual as a human, right? And to see that person's humanity, and to understand that person may be struggling with a mental health crisis. And so instead of looking at it, it's like, no, is this my responsibility? First, take that away and say, all right, this is another human being who is in pain here. And so what would you do for another human being that was in pain? Well, you would find that person help. So I think it would be absolutely appropriate not to kind of, you don't want to violate anybody's confidence, obviously. You don't want to misdiagnose anybody, but you do want to acknowledge their pain and then maybe ally them with someone at the job, somebody that they're close to, somebody that they're connected to, so that they can get the help that they need. Because you do not want people who are suffering from a mental health crisis, kind of going off and then, that not being treated and something bad happens to either them or you.
Farah, I definitely want to hear your viewpoint, Farah, because I know that's your specialty. But let me just also piggyback on what you said, Carter, because you and Duncan and Janaba have all taken mental health first aid with me. So, yes. Duncan, think about it in terms of it's the employer's job to normalize wellness in the culture of the organization, right? And your mental health is a part of that wellness. And so if you see someone who's struggling, whether it's somebody who keeps coming to work with a cold, or it's somebody who came in with a broken ankle, or you see somebody who has signs of depression, or you suspect there might be some substance use going on because people are struggling, as an employer, you should definitely have a concern for their wellness, right? And so you should be able to direct them to resources. And the reason I brought up the mental health first aid training is because it gives you tools on how to have that conversation without breaking things like confidentiality, but to be able to reach out and say, these are the things that I've observed. As your employer, we're concerned. We want the best for you. And then you provide resources for them, right? So if you have insurance for your employees, it's easy to be able to say, our insurance provides ABC services. You might want to consider that, right? So that's important. The last thing I want to say that is really, really important is that language matters. It really, really does. So when we say things like, well, that person's crazy or that person is a crackhead, what we do is we dehumanize people, right? So say it behind people's back when you get home and say to your wife, I got this crazy fool at work. That's okay. But when you're engaging with people in the general public, we want to remember that language matters and we don't want to dehumanize people, right? So everybody who knows me knows I'm a person in recovery, right? My feelings will be hurt if you'll say, Kimmy Carlos, that alcoholic, but if you say Kimmy Carlos is in recovery or Kimmy Carlos is a person with lived experience, that makes all the difference, right? So we want to remember how important language is so that because that quote unquote crackhead on the corner has somebody who loves them. And there was probably a lot of trauma that got them to that corner. So we always want to make sure that we are not dehumanizing people and separating that illness from them as a whole person.
Amen.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's all about humanizing the workplace. It's interesting that we'll say the employer as if the employer is not a person or that it's not a collective of people. We're talking about people. And so when we're discussing if it's the employer or people in leadership or who have the ability to make things happen, if it's important for them to care about your well-being, why aren't we trying to be good citizens? Why aren't we really thinking about how are we showing up for our fellow brother and sister? It's about having high emotional intelligence. It's about creating a psychologically safe space. And we were just talking about the stigma. I think Kimmy was breaking it down on, we had all these things in terms of Black people that are against us. Why would we find another way to other someone? And so it's just another form of othering. We all will have a moment where maybe your daddy dies and you didn't realize you were going to respond the way that you responded. And grief is not necessarily looking the way you thought it was going to look. And so you may be going through complicated grief. You may have psychosis. You just had a baby. I'm going to be honest with you. I had a surprise. I'm going to call him a surprise because we had 2 already. But I had a surprise bonus baby almost 2 years ago.
A bonus baby.
My bonus baby. Because I thought we was done. And I've experienced postpartum depression with 2 out of my 3, children. And so, and it looks different both times. And so to be able to recognize how we interact with what happens in life, how we move and flow is going to show up in the workplace. And as a person who is employing other people and giving them space to work, I want to make sure they're well. And I want to make sure that there's resources to make sure that they show up as their best self. So it is not, it is the whole, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are.
Right. And I want to just throw this piece in that this is not about judgment. This has everything to do with the way we've been socialized to think. Right. Because I grew up hearing that N-word is crazy too. Right. I think that wasn't Richard Pryor's record name. Right. So we all grew up with that word. Right. And so we've been socialized to use it. So there's no judgment. It's just a matter of learning how to unlearn some of our behavior. Right.
Right. So I want to get into this question from Elizabeth, because, as an African American man or Black panel, it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about church and religion, right? Yeah. So Elizabeth says Black people have traditionally relied on faith, not recognizing that faith and clinical support can coexist. Talk about that, somebody.
Yes. That's huge. That's so huge. And forgive me if I'm talking too much, but I think that
that's what we're here for.
Speak, lady, speak.
We in the Black church, I think, again, it goes back to having that self-preservation mindset, right? And so we have been taught that all of our faith is in the Creator, not realizing that a large part of faith is getting up and doing the work, right? And so we have to learn how to advocate for ourselves and bring our voice to the table and realize by me saying that I need help in this area does not mean that my faith is any less. Right. So when God created heart doctors and when God created dentists, that was God's miracle. That was God's work. Right. And so that's God's work when he created therapists, and Black female and Black male therapists are miracles today. Right. They are walking unicorns. Right. But for some reason, our faith leaders have us believing that if we have problems with our mental health, that somehow we failed with our character or failed in our faith. But if I went to you and said, the doctor said I have congestive heart failure, the pastor would be like, well, I suggest you take your medication, right? The pastor's not going to say, well, pray this away, because obviously your faith's not strong enough. So we need to make sure, again, that our mental health is just as important as our physical health. And my philosophy around that is that we have to learn how to be our own best advocates. We have to be the voice in the church and in our workplace that says, I'm making my mental health a priority, right? Until we become our own best advocates, people are going to continue to tell us when and where we can use our voice.
And I think we have to be very careful because we can misinterpret the Bible any way that we want it, I do have a background of going into seminary, and so I believe that there is a way to integrate the science and the faith part. And so what's frustrating is that it's like, okay, well, if we look at that moment between God and Elijah in the Bible, if we're talking about faith being Christianity, I can only speak to that. It's after he, killed, I think, hundreds of false prophets. And he said that he wanted to die, that it would have been easier if he wasn't alone, or that he wasn't born, because he heard that the queen was after his head. Like, you just killed like 700 prophets, and you mad that this one woman claims to come after you? And instead of God saying, shame on you, how come you don't have faith? He was just like, rest, and took care of his physical need. And he was like,
Right.
he brought the ravens to bring him food. And then after he rested and got himself together, he's like, now go back and do what you need to do.
Right.
There's so many instances in the word where God does not shame us for having doubt, for having anxiety, for having fear. You know, he tells us he tells us what we can do, but then he also gives us that grace to be able to move forward. And so I think it's really, really unfortunate that there's, in a way, this like spiritual abuse to those who are experiencing mental health challenges, which make them feel worse. Okay, so now I shouldn't have anxiety. I shouldn't be depressed because my faith means that I'm less than, and that could actually sever and frustrate the relationship that they have with their God, because they may be thinking that their God is judging them. You know?
And that's the last thing you want to do, right?
Exactly.
But you know what?
You want a tool.
Exactly. The one thing that helped me stay sober early on in recovery is the scripture that says, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength, right? And for me, that was a connection. That was the Lord saying how important our mind is, right? And that's when I learned the connection between mental health and sobriety and spirituality, so much so that I wrote an entire book around it, right? Understanding that God is telling us that our mind is a priority. Because think about it, if we are not in our right mind, if we don't have peace of mind, we can't do anything that God calls us to do. We can't worship, we can't praise, we can't serve, we can't do any of that if we're not in our right mind.
I can't throw a shoe at you.
Right, so, so you know, faith and spirituality and science are all one and the same. Science is just God's miracle. That's all it is. Science is not separated from God, right? And so when you think about how important the mind is, God already tells us in the scripture how important our mind is, because he's telling us we need to love him with our entire mind. God expects us to be in our right mind in order to do that. Right. But somewhere along the line, we separated the two, and we use that to judge people, which is why you have so many angry Black folks in church. I'm just going to be transparent about it. You know, I cannot tell you how many times I have walked in church and said, that is the meanest usher I have ever seen. You know, and that's because we are not given space in church to be multidimensional human beings. We're not given space to be sad. We're not given space to worry. We're not given space to be vulnerable. We're not given space to be fragile. We're not given space to be broken. We're not given space to do anything except be angry, because we feel like we're justified in being angry. We don't allow our Black folks to be multidimensional creatures the way God created us. So we walk around broken and depressed in church because somebody told us that if we're not happy or we're not grateful, that we're not good Christians. And it's not just Christianity. It's in Islam, it's in Baha'i, it's in a lot of other faiths as well. We feel like we have to depend on the Creator to fix everything, when in reality, God gave us the tools to do what he calls us to do.
We are not a
I'm sorry.
people. And let me jump in, because I believe Janava was trying to say something. So please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Say something. Mike was crazy because I was
I'm sorry.
I was trying to be polite, but whatever. Anyway, you know, I have a very different experience. So I belonged to a church for like 12 years. And this is, and I don't consider myself to be just a Christian. I believe that God is so vast and so large that he sits wherever he pleases. And so, anyway, I belong to this church. I was raised Christian, and I belonged to this church for like 12 years. And then some things happened, and I decided that it was time for me to move forward. And so when in my process of moving forward, I was tasked with trying to help someone with a mental health issue. And it was always on my mind, thinking about it daily, right? And then one day I drove past this building, because the church had a little thing at the top of it, and I was like, what is that? I was like, oh my gosh, that's a church, right? So I decided to go. I went, and then the whole time during this week, I think it's all about truly being connected to your higher connector, your creator, your power, right? And so I get there and I'm thinking about this issue. Because I believe that God is so sovereign that he can provide anything or whoever wishes and believes, right? And the pastor got up and before he gave his message, he started to talk about mental health. And I was like, oh, okay. And I listened, and then he said that he was going to give a sermon on how mental health is so important. A lot of the things that Kimmy talked about is mentioned in the Word of God, and what God was talking about when he said that you need to, renew your mind. And so what he did was he asked the audience to ask questions, and if you had any issue with mental health and you wanted to help somebody or whatever else, ask a question, and they would answer it in church. This church is Central Baptist Church. It's in Ewing, New Jersey. Pastor Gates, the pastor, he passed away. But it was so awesome. I was like, oh, this is my church. And I think it's our duty to find places of worship, wherever they may be, that solidify who we are in terms of our connection to community and what it is that we do and how we, like Carter said, in terms of was it Duncan, being able to help somebody without thought or care. It was Carter. Thought or care, you just do it. That's what you're supposed to do, because that's my brother, that's my sister, no matter what it will look like. And so I just think we just have to find the right place and stop giving people place in our lives, institutions, churches, or whatever it is, our time and our money that don't support our cause. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Agreed.
There are some great pastors out there that understand and that are honest about their own mental health issues. And we know that there are so many pastors that don't, which is why they're suffering in silence. There's such a high rate of depression with, Black leaders in the church. And so, I used to attend a church where the pastor was big on, addressing mental health. I ended up being the clinical director there. So it wasn't a foreign thing. But then at the same time, I've gone to other churches and visited other churches where it's like, that's a spirit. You need to rebuke that thing. It's like, okay. All right. I was like, can I rebuke this too? We have to really look at it as holistic health. It's all of our parts together.
Right. And again, it goes back to pastors being trained.
What'd you say, Janaba?
I said, can we rebuke that extra offering?
I didn't have that in the church that I went
to. Sorry.
So, I have another question kind of attached, not to the church more so, but from a race standpoint, right? I'm a student of history. I went to school for history, have undergraduate in history. So when I think about like our history, it's so unique. The diaspora is so different, right? And we're still coping with some of the same things that we've been dealing with, from 300, 400 years ago, right? And so here's the thing that I'm thinking about. I just wrote an article recently for Mercer County Works about the hidden tax of being Black in the workplace, right? That a lot of things that people don't know that we may deal with, right, on an everyday basis. So comparatively to other races, do we deal with more mental health issues? Do we deal with the same as other races? Because other races have their stories too. Where are we uniquely in that? Does it matter?
Absolutely. Can I get in on this one? So I think it absolutely matters. Because I think it happens more to us, and our issues are more complex. Because let me just bring up the point about code switching, right? And so everybody has code switched. Everybody has adjusted their language and how they express themselves to make the people around them feel more comfortable. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to not code switch. I'm still presenting myself as a professional, but now I'm going to question you why you feel uncomfortable around me. Because me and the way that I express myself as a Black man, as a person of color, and where I've grown up at, yes, I'm a professional. I run a nonprofit nonprofit program, Operation Fatherhood. What is it, a couple $1 million, Duncan, that we do? So we can present ourselves as a professional, but the complex issues that Black people face in the workplace is just like that. I call it, it's like tiramisu, right? It's a lot of different levels. So you got code switching, and then you have like that, not only code switching, and then you have that whole crab in the barrel syndrome, because you have colorism against other Black people, light-skinned Black people against dark-skinned Black people. I mean, so we have a lot of issues to deal with on top of white supremacist systems. So, I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I think at the end of the day, I just want to be my authentic self, which is a professional. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, that person must question their uncomfortability, not mine. We're all in the same place.
I'd love to piggy off of that if I can.
Yeah. Yes.
So like I literally tweeted this earlier this week about how we have to learn how to be comfortable in white people's discomfort. And so when I do trainings on racial inequality and wellness, the whole concept, because I was like, I know, especially when I'm doing it with mixed company, I was like, I know when I say this, it is one, to empower and to affirm, you know, the Black bodies that I'm speaking to, but also it is to realize that me saying Black people to learn for their own self-care and their own well-being, because research has shown code switching and being because we do have our professional selves and our personal selves, but they're misaligned with our authentic self. That is going to cause us to have higher levels of depression and anxiety. And so it's poor mental health when we code switch. I always, with my clients, I'm like, we ain't doing that. They're gonna get the rap. They're gonna get me.
They're gonna get all that.
So they're gonna get all that.
Right.
However, you know, I know that, you know, white people like to flip it. Like, you know, well, I mean, why can't I be comfortable in your discomfort? And I'm like, here's the difference. Me being comfortable in your discomfort is me letting you be uncomfortable with your ideology, your thoughts about biases, prejudices, all of that stuff. You making me uncomfortable is you saying that I should be uncomfortable with my personhood. I can't change this. You can change the way that you think. And so I do feel that we as Black people do experience mental health at a higher rate, unfortunately. But I think any group that has been marginalized based off of, you know, racism or maybe gender, who's been othered. But we have, to your point, Carter, we have the historical issues of trauma. And so, you know, we don't have necessarily post-traumatic, it's past, it's present, and it's persistent. So we're constantly in a state of trauma. Right. And so since we're constantly in a state of trauma, but like, what has caused this trauma? You brought up colorism and all that stuff, but that's just racism. Right. You know, that's just what we've dealt with white supremacy has us thinking of ourselves in such a way that we have that complication between one another as brothers and sisters. And then we have that weird dysfunctional version of ourselves that we show up to create functional relationships with white people. And so in white spaces, we have to be very careful of our own well-being by making sure that we're doing our due diligence to, you know, self-advocate and to show up as our authentic self. And especially in time of COVID, I think many of us are kind of coming into that waking, like, oh my gosh, I'm in my own house. I can't code switch my own house. Like that cognitive dissonance is just a little weird. You know, it's like, this is my
I definitely want to echo that, because I want to speak to what you said, Jay, directly. I want to answer your question just in general. Yes, Black people have larger issues with mental health in the workplace, and that's whether it's corporate America or nonprofit or public or government or whatever it is. Right. And it's important to understand that as Black folks, we have a unique place in this country that no other race or ethnicity has, because we are the only people whose ancestors were kidnapped and enslaved and sold as chattel, right? And so that is a generational trauma that we still carry today, that we pass down not only through the womb, but through our behaviors, right? And so that alone is traumatizing. And then also we need to understand that while there is a generalized systemic racism around people of color in this country, there's a specific type of racism that affects us, which is anti-Black racism. And the racism towards Black people is stronger than any other type of racism. So your indigenous people who have lived literally through genocide and the theft of their land, and Black folks who were kidnapped and had their heritage erased and sold into enslavement are the two groups of people that have the greatest amount of trauma in this country. And then because of systemic racism and anti-Black racism, then we deal with things, as you said, in the workplace around microaggressions, around stereotypes, and around this belief that Black people are somehow not as intelligent or as value. Our humanity is literally not valued, right? Which is why we see other people of color come into organizations and do well. And then other people of color look at Black folks like, well, why aren't you doing as well, right? So to Farah's point, we have to make sure that we are advocating for ourselves and bringing our voice to the table, right? So we want to advocate to be authentic, but we also want to advocate for normalizing safe spaces in our workplace. In other words, yes, I'm going to bring my authentic self, and you, as Farah said, and as Carter said, need to sit with why you're uncomfortable with me being authentic. But we do that by first recognizing the position that we're in this country, and then finding that self-worth and that self-value to say, I'm going to show up every day as I am. Because yes, code switching is unhealthy, and dealing with the bias that we receive from our own people because of our socialization is also unhealthy, right? So we have to learn how to be our advocate and say, you know what, I'm going to show up as I am, and I'm going to be respectful and professional, but you're going to have to sit with why you're uncomfortable with who I am.
I think it's just really important to that was all really great. I'm like, listen, I'm like, I need a notebook. I'm about to take notes. I think it's really important too to just hold people accountable. You know, so when people say things that are inappropriate, or they, you know, make comments about maybe work ethic or who you are, especially with Black women too, you know, we get it real good. Like, are you this is your assistant? No, I'm actually the director. You didn't realize that, did you? No, not his assistant, director. So, you know, just always being in a place to, like, you know, correct people in a nice way, professionally. Like, you don't get to say certain things to me. You don't get to imply that something wasn't done. Like, for instance, I had an incident just today. I'm hiring somebody. I'm hiring a media specialist, and somebody brought it to my attention that something that's a part of the position that is not really priority is not being done. And so there are all these things that are priority that still have to get done that I'm focused on. But this little thing was kind of sort of pointed out, and I had to remind the person, because I know the person, what they actually meant, but I had to remind them that, one, the facts. We have to hire a person. I'm in the process of interviewing 5 people on Monday. You know, there's a pool of people that still need to be interviewed. And then when that person is hired, then that person will be responsible for what that position entails. And so, you know, it's just little things like that that always have you in the back of your mind thinking, now, if I was Susie, would you have even sent me the email? You know,
and that's exhausting, right? It's exhausting
because I have so much work to do. Like, I don't have to explain.
It is exhausting.
I'm hiring for this position. You know, this person who's currently not here is like, why? What other reason could there possibly be? You know, and so just being very honest with people, and then letting people know immediately, like not giving them an opportunity to let it linger or let it, like, it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay if you disrespect me and say, you know, if you speak to me as a child. You know, I've had an incident where someone on a Zoom call with people was like, you know, speaking to me as a child. And I said, you know, very matter, because you always are thinking about, is this the angry Black woman's response?
Again, have to think that way.
Sometimes they need that too.
Right. So I said something like, you know, in order to get anything done, we have to remain respectful to one another, and positive about the work that we're doing. And they apologized immediately.
Good.
Right.
Very good.
So holding people accountable, like, just like that. Like, I'm not going to stoop. I'm not going to belittle you. I'm going to use intelligent words because I'm intelligent and Black. And I have to make sure you know, right. I have to make sure you know that is not allowed. It's not allowed.
Absolutely. And that's how you advocate for your own wellness, right? Because it gets exhausting to have to do that. But if we're making sure that our wellness is priority, then we have the strength to do that, right?
Right. So let me ask this question. So I've had a extensive work history. I've probably had about 10, 11 jobs. I've probably been fired about 10, 11 times.
Oh no.
No, I'm
just graduated from med school or something, right?
I know, right?
But in the workplace, when you see a coworker, right? You said you want to address them as a person. When you see a coworker, I guess begin to Carter, what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a D. Not decompensate.
Deteriorate.
Decompensate. Decompensate is what you're looking for. Yeah.
And you try and you want to help that person, right? But that person is now saying, "I'm okay, I'm fine, I don't need any help." How do you address that in the workplace if that person is going crazy, right? But they don't believe that they're going crazy.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's a hard one, Duncan. I mean, it's so personal and it's so like individualized because it really deals with like the person. And if you really saw that a person was decompensating to that level where their affect, like they had a blunted affect or like they were disheveled or like, their hygiene started to slip. That is, again, that's human, right? So that's somebody that you pull into the office. And of course, if you have to have a rapport with that person to be able to meet them where they are, to be able to kind of share them and kind of lead them down the path so that they can open up that path. Because I don't think if you don't have a connection or a rapport with that specific individual, it'll be very, very difficult and almost maybe offensive to kind of assume that something is going on because that could be just that person's way. Right. So I really think it goes down to the individual person. But like, again, my golden rule is always treating people as human beings and with this really genuine and authentic humanity. Right. And you see the person first. You don't see all of the problems. You see a person that's in pain and then you would help them. So I'm always going to defer to that.
Yeah, there are ways to do it. I mean, that was really, really good, Carter, about having a rapport with the person. And so I'm a big fan of if I come here for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever I come here for, you gotta understand that now you're a part of my family. And so I'm not gonna be all in your business every day, but I am going to make a concerted effort to be aware of what is happening in your life and come in gently with a little move every once in a while, to help you with self-care. And so I might not be able to encourage you to see a counselor, but I might be able to say, hey, you want to go for a walk? Or would you like to grab some lunch with me? And so giving a person an opportunity to build a relationship with you and to open up when you see them struggling is so important. And that's just not even with mental health. That's just people slipping on a job. Like, everything is connected to mental health, but like people are slipping in terms of their work ethic or being able to get things done, offering a friendly hand is more valuable, I think, than handing somebody a pamphlet, and so having that care and that gentleness that Carter talked about is so important. So,
if someone came in the office, every day for a week coughing up a lung, you would definitely have a conversation with them, right? You'd be really concerned. Like, are you concerned about taking PTO or, do you have enough health insurance or, you'd want to have a conversation with them, right? But also to Farah's point, as senior leaders, the wellness of the entire organization is important. And so if you see somebody beginning to decompensate, that's going to affect the entire office, right? Affect the entire office, right? So you want to make sure that you are engaging with that person and doing what's best for them. So I know, when I got to my lowest in active alcoholism and I was rolling in the office smelling like rum every day, they pulled me aside finally and said, okay, you know what, let's have a conversation. We're going to send you down to HR. You're going to have a conversation with somebody in HR. HR sent me to the nurse. The nurse sat me down and said, listen, we know what kind of professional you are. We believe that you're having some challenges. We want you to leave. This is the doctor that we want you to deal with. And when you deal with that doctor, your job will be here for you. So they placed me first as a human being. And I realized how fortunate I was because if that employer hadn't stepped in, I don't know that I would have 18 years clean by now, right? And so they, rather than just saying, listen, this Black woman is a drunk and we're just going to get rid of her, they really approached me as a whole human being and said, you're valuable and we want to get you some support. Now, mind you, that was a much larger organization, but I've always been indebted to them because they treated me that way. And they said, we're going to get you what you need. And then we're going to give you your job back because we believe in you as a person. So if you want to do that, whether it's, substance use disorder, or they're falling into psychosis, or you see them slipping in depression, or whatever it is, you want to approach them as a whole human being and see where you can support them.
And what I would like to add to that, because I think that's a great story of how you can create that culture of wellness. And so I believe it's the Mental Health Alliance, that they have the, don't wait till stage 4. Like, you don't wait till stage 4 to address cancer. You want to get to it, stage 1, stage 2, hopefully. And so what are we doing in our workplaces that are creating, or that is creating a space where we're not waiting till somebody is stumbling into the office smelling like rum? What were the signs beforehand? Were there some delays in assignments, or, were they really chatty during lunch and now they are more recluse? Like, there are signs there. And the thing is that we can get so, tunnel vision, and, depending on what kind of work environment, if it's extremely toxic, it's always about profit and performance, right? Instead of the people. And so if you're so busy trying to just like, I got to produce, I got to put output, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what happened to Kimmy? Right. It's like, well, Kimmy's been decompensating for some time now, and you guys are just now seeing, just the worst of the symptoms. And so I think it's just very important that it is part of the DNA of a workplace, a work environment, to go like, no, we are here to interweave wellness into not just our policies and procedures, but it is our behavior. It is how it shows up in practice, not just in theory. And so, but I do have to kind of get on you, Duncan, because, that whole going crazy.
Yeah, right.
They off level.
I like that. They're off level. I'm gonna remember that one.
We want to be able to stand firm and have a good foundation, but there's things in life that can get us off level. So not crazy.
I'm taking notes.
That's right.
Definitely. Well, I do want to interject. My shout out to my cousin. She's in the chat, Lauracita. She's a therapist as well, so she has a lot of knowledge on this subject. Her comment made me think about a question that I wanted to ask you all. She said, how did our ancestors deal with all this with less resources? And so that made me think about, how can we deal with it ourselves? So if we're employees and we're an individual entity, how do we help ourselves deal with mental health? How do we prevent some of these things from happening to us? How do we make sure that we are aware of this as it may go on so we can stop it? Individually, how do we do that?
I don't like the individual thing. We were created to be in, I know what you mean, but I'm saying we are created to be in community. And so I think it is important for us to be aware of our own boundaries that need to be in place. That we also need to elevate our emotional intelligence. And so all of this is about creating a planned self-care toolkit. But, when you're doing your wellness plan or your wellness maintenance, whatever name you want to, call it, there should still be some kind of accountability. So like, I'm a parent, I'm a wife, I need to show up for my husband and for my kids, and I need to make sure I get proper rest. I mean, need to make sure that I eat and do all this stuff so that I can serve them and minister to them the best way that I can. But I know that I have to tell my husband, especially because right now, like I said, I'm in, Chicago area. I don't know about y'all, but this daylight savings in 2020 hit way different. I was like,
it's hitting me now. Like, it's hitting me right now.
I was like, what is really happening? Like a blanket just went right over the sun. Like, they ain't even a sunset. It's just like light, dark. But my husband is aware that the older that I get, because I'm self-aware that during the winter months and the seasons changing, that my mood changes. And so because I've told him, hey, this is what's going on with me, he also watches for me. And so he'll be like, hey, babe, the weather's nice today. Make sure you go for a walk. So just making sure that we are loving one another and advocating for one another and supporting one another in our journey, because there's going to be some times that you may really fall off your self-care plan and you just don't have it in you. Who is around you to be able to support you going like, hey, baby, you need to go take a shower. You need to wash your hair. Think about new moms, you know, and it's like they're always thinking about the baby and they forgot, like, man, when was the last time I brushed my teeth? When was the last time, you know, and being able to have community be like, let me hold the baby. Let me just hold the baby. So that's what I mean. You know, Jay, like I wasn't saying like we shouldn't be doing our stuff, but if we have to do it in community.
I agree. I think community is important. I also think that we need to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable for building our own resilience, right? So when it came to our ancestors, I think that we are absolutely resilient people. But let's just be honest. Our ancestors were not given a lot of tools and resources. And so really unhealthy habits and behaviors have been passed down through the generation that we learned in order to survive. So there's no judgment there, right? But there's a lot of unhealthy behaviors that we passed down through the generations because that's how we needed to survive down through the generations, right? Now that we have a lot more opportunities than our ancestors did, we really have to be responsible for building our own resiliency. And I have a real big issue with the word strong and strength, right? Because strong means every time you get knocked down, you're going to get back up again, you know. But resilience means when you get knocked down, you're going to learn how not to get knocked down by that crisis again, right? You're going to learn how to build empowerment around that. And we think being strong means that we're just not going to talk about it and we're not going to seek help and we're just going to make sure that nobody sees a crack in our armor. And we learned that from our ancestors because that's what they had to do to survive. So how our ancestors got through is not necessarily how we need to get through today. We need to really focus on building our resilience as individuals so we can model that for our children and our grandchildren. And we break the cycle of a lot of this dysfunctional behavior that our ancestors did because they had to do that to survive.
Like code switching.
Like code switching, exactly. Our ancestors code switched because if they didn't, they could get shot dead. Right.
Yeah. So
wait, I want to go Janaba and then Carter, you can go.
Okay.
So I think one of the things I keep thinking about is just because we're talking about the workplace. And my stuff is always so basic. I'm about to sound basic again. Is this concept of leading by example. And so showing people like what they're entitled to do at work. And so one is taking your breaks regularly. You know, going your break. 2, going outside for a walk for some fresh air. 3, being very transparent about how you feel, not lengthy in it, but very honest about like how you feel. And so this year, 11 people that I love and that I know died. And so like it was a very challenging thing to be like, oh, I'm a director of marketing and I have 11 people, 8 family members. And so just being very transparent. So when I have a meeting with somebody one-on-one on a Zoom and they're like, I'm like, hey, can we make this 15 minutes because I need to make a call from my so-and-so because there has to be a balance and people have to know that my life is just as important as this job. And so I love working and doing the work that I do, but I love my family. And I love being there for the people that need me. And I love myself. And I'm going to take the time that I need for myself, whether you like it or not. And so just being, just super transparent. And, even like the people who work under me, one of the things that I often do is just we go to lunch together or I say, hey, take a break. Like, don't you want to go take a break? You want to go get some water or something? Get up. And try to have more spirit about it. But I'm being serious because I have one employee, she left, she moved, she went back to China and I miss her so much. Oh my God, I miss her. But she just be like, I can hear her. I'm like, she killing it, right? Killing the game, getting everything done. And we work great as a team, but you still need to stop working for a second and go eat something. Right. And you need to get some fresh air and you need to, be very honest when you don't feel well. Like you don't feel good, don't come to work. You got a stomachache, stay home, get your rest so you can come tomorrow. But whatever the case, just being very open and honest about what you need in the workplace, I think is really important. And people start to embrace and respect you more when you're transparent. So anyway.
I agree with that. But I think that also is a privilege if you can do that in the workplace and it's respected. Because not everybody can, people are fearful to take the time off, even if it's a PTO. You know, they're wondering, like, will I be able to get this job back? Will this affect my promotion? And so,
especially right now, right?
Right. You know, and so I think we have to recognize that creating that culture of wellness is important. And so that self-advocacy and the way you showing up, Janaba, is awesome, because I think if more people could do that, I think it would shift some things, but it's a top-down approach. So leadership has to create, you know, that framework so that more people can do what Janaba's doing and creating what I call everything that you just broke down. I mean, first of all, I am so sorry for all the loss that you have had to deal with. This is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm so sorry. But for you advocating for yourself in your time and creating those boundaries, like that is, I don't believe work-life balance is a myth. Work-life alignment is what we're trying to achieve. You know, so you are aligning things to work for you. So you're creating your life by design. I'm going through grief, but I still need to show up for work. But let me tell you how I need to have this to work.
I got 15 minutes.
I need to make this call.
For 15 minutes because I need to cry right now. And I'm going to all of that. But you know, this meeting don't need to last an hour. Like, you know, because what'll happen is you'll end up working. Like I noticed when the COVID first started that I was like, I'm home. I'm gonna work all day. Like what am I doing? Why am I still here? Let me get out. You know, because now you're in this space that's your home, and so you're very comfortable with it. But then you have to make yourself get up and go do something, go outdoors or whatever else, because you know your job. I mean, I honestly believe people who are working from home are working harder than they ever have.
Yeah, in a
there's
pandemic.
No cooler breaks. There's no call. There's none of that. There's not leaving for lunch and staying an hour and a half. No. If you I added up my hours today, right? And I was like, oh, I started a little late, 8 o'clock, right? But I was thinking like, how many hours did I do? And I added. I was like, I'm only going to do this many hours because yesterday I did 12, right? And then I was like, I'm just going to do like 7 hours today. And I was like, no. That didn't happen that way, but anyway, I don't.
So,
well, Carter, I know Carter had something.
Carter.
I'm just, I mean, if they, the ladies kind of said it all. I'm just kind of, the thing that kind of came to mind when you had said that, Jay, was radical self-love, right? And that's what I think that everybody's saying, because one of the things that kind of happened with me through this whole COVID experience has been the power of saying no to people, and making sure that I am healthy, that I am my best and my authentic self. And when I was really saying to myself, eating healthier, just doing more healthier things, it improved the relationships with my daughter, with my son, and with my relationships all around me, because I had this attitude of radical self-love. I'm going to say no. I'm going to need this 15 minutes later on today just for me, right? And Sunday's my day. Don't nobody call me on Sunday, right? Because that's that radical self-love. Because then on Monday, I'm ready. Right. And I'm ready. I pick up my daughter every day for school. I'm ready. I'm bright and I'm fresh because I'm now connected with everyone, because I've loved myself enough to now that I can give it to everyone else.
That's right.
I was saying that, we create a healthier world by creating a healthier you. So it's a ripple effect. If you good, everybody else gonna be good.
That's right.
Hi.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I love it. I'm just like, I'm taking a back seat. This is not my area of expertise, and I'm just soaking up so much game from y'all. So I really appreciate it. Somebody said something about workplace culture. I think Farah, I think you said something about that. And I think that's very important. So sometimes we are working in an environment where maybe employee wellness or just a personal wellness is not really prioritized. So what can we do in that situation as a regular person to help your company prioritize that from a top-down perspective. Do we leave that place? Do we help create that culture? What do we do?
So can I answer real quick? I try to be quick. It's hard to be quick. So one of the things that happened during the process of losing the people that I lost was that, so the dean that I worked for, and I write a lot of her pieces, left, and she became the executive vice chancellor. So we have a new interim dean, right? And fantastic. She's like, reached out to me after my aunt passed away, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I send your family something? Can we send something to the school on behalf of your family?" And I'm like, no, I lost a lot of people, and I'm sad about it, right? But a lot of people probably lost a lot of people. And so sending out a message to everyone at the school about this concept of the importance of grieving through your loss, and connecting with people and providing resources for everybody is really important right now, probably, right? And not just the people that we serve, because it's a graduate school of psychology, right? We train practitioners, we have workshops, that kind of thing. But what about the people who work here? And so being able to send a very transparent message of care to those people would be really great. And she agreed. And so, I got another thing to do for work. But now there's a message that can go out to the entire school community that says, we know that this is happening right now. COVID is happening right now. We have a racial pandemic right now. Still, who knows? Fighting. But who knows? But whatever the case, a lot is going on, and these are some resources, for you. And so being able to little stuff like that, I think when you start to just try to just do your part is so important in the workplace, and it doesn't really take a whole lot. It doesn't take a whole lot.
I think we do definitely want to prioritize our own wellness. And so again, it goes back to bringing your voice to the table. But I also think it's really important for us as Black folks to realize that it's not always our responsibility to fix everything, right? So we need to decide whether or not we want to be the change agent in that company, right? Do we want to be the one that says, listen, we need a better wellness culture in this company? Do I have the emotional capacity or bandwidth to be the change agent? Or is it more beneficial for me to go where they're going to support me better, right? Because as Black folks, we've been taught that it's our job to come in and clean up the mess. Yep. And so we really need to make the choice, the conscious personal choice. Is this organization supporting me? And do I have enough investment personally, emotionally, professionally to want to make change by bringing a voice to the table? And if not, if you feel like these folks don't appreciate me, I don't want to invest emotionally in making change, then your number one priority is to build a strategy to find somewhere else where you're going to be supported. Right. But that's a personal decision. I don't want us as Black folks to think if the organization is dysfunctional, it's our job to fix it, because it's not.
No. We can't be the advocate and the assaulted at the same time.
Exactly.
And so it is something that I try to encourage people, because now everybody wants to pull Black employees into the DEI space, right? It's just like, oh, because you're Black, then all of a sudden you are a DEI expert, and that's not the case. Right. So, I always encourage, especially when it's like a friend. There was one time early on where my husband was like, well, maybe I'm going to do it. And to Kimmy's point, it's like, do you have the bandwidth? Because it's one thing when they hire me, I'm an outsider. I come in, I tell you what to do, I train, I consult, whatever, but then I go. I don't have to deal with you being resistant. I don't have to deal with the disappointment of you not implementing the things that I've said. So if you are in the space, it becomes more frustrating and even more dehumanizing, where it's like, okay, we're going to lobby for this, and we're going to champion for this, and womp womp, like nothing happens. It's not just like, oh, they didn't care about this idea, or they didn't care about this initiative. It becomes a personal attack. It feels like an injury, or rejection, even to you. So create a strategy on leaving if it is not the best place for you to be. But I do think that we're all leaders, regardless of what title and letters are behind our names. We do have a sphere of influence wherever we go, but it definitely is a top down in terms of, wellness initiatives need to have senior leadership buy-in. And I think so many times workplace wellness initiatives get the lowest budget. It's like, oh, it's the end of the year. Hey, let's throw a program together. And it's like,
or ice cream party or something.
Or I always say that, wellness perks don't take care of the wellness problems. So if you're going to give me a gym membership, is that really what I need? If you're going to bring a 5K run, I mean, that's great and all, but are we going to talk about flex spending, flex time, things that I actually need? So having a wellness audit is important, and having an external person do it, to be honest, so that you can call a spade, because I think sometimes HR tries to do things internally, and it's like, y'all ain't going to be honest. Y'all are not going to sit there and address, how things are affecting the women in your office, or how things are affecting the parents in your office, or the Black people in your office. And so leadership needs to be open to go, okay, if we want to create a culture of wellness, we need to be intentional with it. And we need to be able to actually put money and back it up, not just talk the talk, but walk it.
One of the really great things, I worked for Henry J. Austin Health Center for a while, and one of the really great things that they did, or Dr. Ali did, initiated along with Human Resources, was this concept of being rewarded with time. And so, as a part of the Health and Wellness Initiative, when people did well, they were rewarded with time off. And so you got some time, and people liked that. They liked it. It was and in fact, it was it was a part of a full initiative and a questionnaire that included asking questions of everyone at the job, what would you like? Do you want to do yoga? You want to go for a walk? And how do you want to be rewarded? And it was a few pages, but everybody filled it out. And then we, did the data on it, and then selected the thing that was most important and valuable to the employees.
You actually asked.
Right, as they asked. So it was time off for a reward based on your work ethic and what you you got at the end of a quarter. I forget exactly how it worked, but it worked. And I think it changed the culture of the organization, because they started to realize, I'm being asked questions about what I need, and something that's not being implemented because you think it's good and because everybody else is doing it too. So anyway,
that's good.
So
that's good.
So before we end the show, I want to ask this last question, especially for our viewers, and some of the viewers that I've had this discussion with. So right now, we are at a crossroads in America, and we have a national policing crisis, right? Where we have seen law enforcement take the lives of some of those individuals that may have some mental health issues or challenges. And so some of the solutions have been to implement or place mental health workers inside of, the law enforcement realm. Some people says that's not going to work. And, I guess just as, speaks, they'll say, well, what, mental health person is going to want to go in for somebody that has mental health issues, that's carrying a knife, that's what the police are for. So I really want to kind of talk about that and get your sense on, how can law enforcement, one, work with people that have this experience, and two, is it really feasible for mental health workers to actually go in and work with law enforcement to de-escalate some of those situations? And I could probably point out one specifically in Philadelphia where there was a young man. He had a knife in his hand. There were two police officers. His mother, the young man's mother, was out there. He was running around the car. The police officers were retreating. I will say that to a point. Mother screaming, "Please don't kill my son." Son's running around with a knife in his hand. It came to a point where the son actually, went towards the police officers. Police officers opened fire, right? And so, where some will say, well, if there was, someone that had, mental health training on site, they could have de-escalated that situation. Where, some, and Black folks will say, well, if the boy's mama couldn't get him to put down the knife, what do you think a mental health worker was going to do? So can we talk about that for a minute? Can we get into that?
Wow.
So that's a
right.
It's a hot button issue, obviously, because it's not just mental health, right? There's a lot of systemic racism in our law enforcement, because law enforcement was created to police black bodies and protect white property. Okay, so
Slave
let's just put that out there right there. Okay, but we do know that it's not just black folks who die by the hands of law enforcement, and we do know that, you know, in all respect, law enforcement is trained to do what they do, to enforce the law, right? And so if you give somebody a hammer, they're going to think everything is a nail. So they're going to respond the way they've been trained to respond. That said, there are some awesome programs out there that work with law enforcement to teach them how to engage with people who are living with mental health challenges. One of them is CIT, crisis intervention training. And we have quite a few law enforcement agencies across the state of New Jersey who have been trained in CIT. So they've learned how to engage with someone who's in crisis. I also know that parts of the Philadelphia law enforcement has also gone through various types of training like that as well. And there are strategies across the country where other urban communities have learned to work with our mental health professionals, so that if someone actually calls and says, I have a mental health challenge with a loved one or a family member or a neighbor or a child or whatever it is, then law enforcement knows to bring a mental health professional with them. So as Carter will remember and Duncan will remember, when I used to do workshops for the Urban Mental Health Alliance, I used to teach people that if you feel like you need to call 911, you need to tell them that this is a mental health challenge. They need to be aware that this is not just your standard robbery or domestic violence. This is somebody who's in psychosis or somebody who's threatening suicide, or, you know, so that they realize that, because if they're aware, they will usually bring somebody from a crisis unit, right? So it has to do with us understanding how to engage with law enforcement, but we also need to be realistic about what law enforcement can and cannot do. And this, again, goes back to how do we advocate to make change so that law enforcement recognizes Black humanity enough to say, let me engage with this person because they're ill, as opposed to I feared for my life. So it's a lot bigger than just can they work with mental health, although that is a big step. And there are strategies that have proven to work very well, but we need to be real cognizant around what we're dealing with law enforcement and Black folks.
Yeah, the same thing happens at so the Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology is obviously a PSYD program, but it also houses a number of different organizations within the school that support the clinical work and training. And so several of the programs are the Douglas Developmental Disability Center, which is like huge in terms of the in the area of mental health. We're working with students who have disabilities and other behavioral problems or behavioral issues, because they're not problems, and not in my own eyesight. And then the Rutgers Center for Adults with Autism does the same thing. So they offer family supports like Kimmy was talking about, which let parents know the language that you need to use when people of enforcement or any type of enforcement or any type of organization are coming to the home, so they are aware of triggers or things that could happen with their child or an adult that they may be caring for. And so there's a lot of training that has to happen, you know, across the community, not just with police officers, but with families and with caregivers and with other organizations, so that people know the right language to use, one, and then two, they know how to address a situation or how it should be handled. And sometimes you have to use force. But knowing how to use force when you're dealing with someone with a certain disability or mental health issue. So anyway.
I agree. Honestly, I just feel like there are so many layers of retraining. You know, we talk about law enforcement, but I mean, if we really look at what you have to do to become a law enforcer by being a police officer, I think you have more training to be a hairstylist than you have to be a officer. So I think there's an issue there, is that I don't think we have proper training for those who decide to go into the field of law enforcement. So if you have poor training, and then to Kimmy's point, the history of systemic racism that is also embedded in the training, where there is that, oh, if I see a Black body, that means it's a threat. That's a problem. So even if you may have the knowledge that this person has a mental health issue, you still see this person as a threat. And then also those officers who may be dealing with their own mental health issues cannot share that they have mental health issues because they get their FOID card taken away from them. So there's, again, talking about psychological safety and, a cultural wellness. We have officers who are in a stressful job, who are not well trained and are not being properly cared for in terms of their own mental well-being, are supposed to be protecting us. Like, make it make sense to me. And so I feel like there's supposed to be maybe just some best practices from other countries who obviously all around the world, we are all dealing with some kind of mental health issues. How do they care for instances of potential violence because someone is, in the midst of psychosis or domestic violence or whatever is going on? What do they do? How do their law enforcement take care of the situation? But I think that there's such a issue around funding and maybe just that American pride, we do everything the best, where that there isn't that time to really critically think on why is this not working? Why do we have such high crime rates? How is it that we have so many people dying by the hand of law enforcement who were caring or not caring? We have that poor Elijah McClain. My heart broke for that boy because he didn't have a weapon. But they were just, didn't understand him and him being just a more colorful young man. And, I think having mental health professionals be there to support, kind of like, people who are trained to do negotiations when someone's like barred in and hostage, negotiations. If you can get that, then why couldn't you get somebody to, talk through how to de-escalate a situation? But I do think that we need to put a lot more or redirect our funding for law enforcement for better training on the front end and continuous training in regards to mental wellness for themselves and for the community.
Well, I would say this. We are unfortunately drawing near to the end of the show. And I say unfortunately because I feel like this was such an enlightening discussion. And I would say this too. I'm a hip hop fan, so I feel like if there was a mental health awareness album, there's so many quotables and bars that came through today. It's amazing, So if you have an album like that, I'm gonna put y'all on, So you can do something. But it was really a lot of amazing content. So let's wrap up the show. We usually ask, one major question. So the major question is, what are the takeaways that the audience should remember? If they didn't remember anything else, or they just came into the show right now, what's the major takeaway from your perspective?
Can I start? I got two takeaways, Jay. Can I share two takeaways? Right.
All day.
My first takeaway is always treat people with humanity first. That's my very first. Now, and then my second takeaway is, it's just very simple, right? I personally don't seek to be right. I just want to be effective. Because your right is offensive to him. His truth is his lie. There's so much spin going on in this world today. I don't want to be right. I just want to be effective. And that's my takeaway.
Amen. I think we're done, so I can stop.
Thank you, big brother Carter.
Carter said it.
Carter, cut it down.
I would say
go ahead, Kimmy. You go, Kimmy.
I was going to say, if you had one takeaway, I'd say that your mental and emotional wellness, resilience, and empowerment is your number one priority and your number one responsibility. And when you do that, then you have the ability to serve from your overflow.
Love that. Serve from your overflow.
I'm right back basic again. I was just going to say, take your breaks.
Hey, that's powerful.
Breaks, like take your breaks, like, because you know how I mean. I went through a year of like work, and I was like, wow, I I knew we got 2 15-minute breaks. I realized I never took them. And so I started to do the math and I did the time and I was like, 30 minutes a day times 365. I was like, that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours that I could have took for my own mental sanity and health, right? Or whatever the number is. And it just was bizarre to me. And I just told myself that from now on, I'm just going to take my breaks. That's all I could do. When I need a moment, I'm going to take it.
I would say, because there were so many great nuggets, but I would encourage everyone to make sure that you do take care of yourself and don't run yourself into the ground for a job that will already have your position posted on LinkedIn before your obituary is even written. So care for yourself, because your primary ministry is the people that you serve in your home. So your family, your kids, etc. So work is going to be okay. You can take your breaks.
That's
Take them breaks.
Take them breaks.
That's right.
That should be a shirt.
Yeah,
right. Take your break.
I like that. That should be a t-shirt.
That should be a shirt.
That should be a t-shirt. Yep.
Daisy,
I'll go ahead and put that on the coffee mug.
Amen.
All right. So the last important part too is, where can everyone find you? So let's start with Carter. Where can we find you on social media, website, anything? Just give us the information.
Okay, you can reach me at C Patterson. That's Patterson with 2 T's at thefathercenter.org. All
right.
Very simple.
All right.
Yep.
Kimmy?
You can reach me at KimmyCarlos.com, KIMMECARLOS.com. And you can find me on Facebook at Kimmy Carlos Motivational Consulting.
All right. Farah?
Social media, I'm at Farah Harris, LCPC. That's on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And then you can check out my website, workingwelldaily.com.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. And Janaba?
I will be the last one and running, trying to figure it out. I'm like, which thing am I going to say?
Say them all.
First off, you can find me on Facebook, Janaba Figueroa, facebook.com, Janaba Figueroa. But I did want to, I do have a podcast. I did not mention that. Am I on here still? Because I can't even see myself anymore. I do have a podcast that I do called Freestyle with Janaba. And so you can find that on anchor.fm/Janaba. And then I am launching a business next week. It is, I just want to do a shameless plug. You just got to put your email address when you go into the website, because it's not going to be launched until Thanksgiving. It's done. I'm just tweaking a bunch of stuff, but it's called MarsTheMoon.com. It is focused on interior decorating, so to speak. And so there's an interior decorating aspect. So there'll be illumination consultations. And so illumination consultations involve redefining and redesigning your space, for mental health and wellness. But there are also meditation sessions and a number of other services that will be provided, and products as well. So I am going to take that and put it on a mug and add it to my list. But look me up on look it up on MarsTheMoon.com, and it launches on Thanksgiving Day. So yeah.
Yay! Congratulations, Janaba.
Yes, congrats. And I don't know if you guys can put the link in the comment section, but I do also have a ebook, a digital download self-care book, 21 Days to Self-Care, because they say 21 days to create a habit. And so it's a self-care book for those who are in the working profession, whether that is you working out of the home, i.e. not a stay-at-home parent, but we're all kind of like stay-at-home parents now, aren't we?
Yep.
But
I just clicked on the link too, and it looks very good. I will be downloading it.
Thank you,
and for all our people actually listening, so once we put the show up on our YouTube and Facebook, we'll actually have all these links as well that you can click on to find this awesome panel.
And Duncan, what company do you represent?
Oh yes, Mercer County Works. We are the number one job engine in New Jersey. So if you know somebody that is currently looking for a job, or maybe not even looking for a job, right, but wants to try something new, wants to find a new career, please send them to www.mercercountyworks.com. We are the number one job engine in New Jersey and growing, and we are excited about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Well, Dunk, take us away, man. Parting shots.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you all. I've learned a lot today. I'm not going to call anybody crazy anymore, right? I'm not going to other anybody. I'm not going to do that, right?
Not even Carter. Not even Carter.
Good job, Duncan.
He may be an exception. He actually may be an exception. But once again,
Kill him with the shoulders.
once again, to all our viewers, we want to say thank you. Tune in next time. See you later. Peace.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.